Everybody, Bigfoot Mission Rob here. It is Wednesday, and this is the fifth series in my Halloween videos. Before I get on with that, last night DAY song was on the late show or on Beyond BMR with myself and Chris. That was a great show. If you did not see it, we talked about Monster Hunters of America, one of her two books that she recently put out. Fantastic show. DAY song, awesome author. Go check her out. Check out the links in the show. Also on Monday, I put out for all you people that wanted a Dogman story or encounter. I put that out Monday. That's fabulous. Everyone loves it. So go check that out. And I got to tell you, this is the fifth installment for Halloween. Some of you are taking it okay. I get it. Most of my audience is Bigfoot or the paranormal or the dog man. I get it. But every October, I do Halloween stories, and I'm going to continue on for October. Putting out more videos in October than ever before, simply because I have been doing it for the last 2 years like this. So you have to bear with it. But for you people that love Halloween, thank you so much for watching these. I do appreciate it. I was kind of humbled over the weekend because I got two separate emails from two different people, and they both said things similar. So I'm going to kind of summate what both people said. Oh, Rob, man, we don't, they both were talking about neither one's had a Dogman experience or Bigfoot for a video, but they said kind of like they've had experiences that would be more fitting for Halloween. And again, I'm surmising that from both of them. They said two different things. I'm not going to read what they told me, but you guys get the gist of it. Sent me two stories that they experienced, thought it'd be good for Halloween. And you know what? That's what I'm doing. So, some true Halloween experiences sent in from people that follow the show. Subscribe to Bigfoot Mission Rob if not already. The first one is simply about a cemetery. And it goes on. When I was 16, my friend Sean, who was a big goofball, came over to chill out in the basement, as he often would during the summer. I remember he had a Coke bottle in his hand, and I was eating Wendy's when he said we should check out that creepy cemetery across town. It was the worst idea ever. I even told him to sit still. We had no school the next day, and I knew exactly which cemetery he was talking about. I really don't know if anybody even calls it a regular cemetery. It was a large plot of land with maybe 1,000 tombstones at the most. The tombstone about the area was very archaic looking. And any time we passed, there was no signs of anyone having come to visit within the last several decades. Very old, creepy cemetery. Nobody goes here. In fact, it had been closed down the last 10 years. I'm imagining this site or cemetery probably dated back for centuries. And it had this super creepy vibe to it because it was closed off by a gothic metal fence. And it was surrounded by woods on two sides, and some old abandoned buildings were at the center of it. Again, everything about this place just gave off those scary vibes. Many people had reported weird sightings and strange sounds coming from the graves. Almost everyone in town had their own personal story of the place. Some of them were obviously exaggerated. Two of the best stories I had heard from my family were from uncle and grandma of mine. My uncle had once heard someone screaming for help while he was driving near the place. He stopped, got out of the car, and heard the scream again. He said it was coming from inside one of the graves near the wire. He quickly left. Right, Grandma had once seen a lady dressed in white clothes slowly waving her hand at her. We also heard many rumors about that place, like some people would go there at 3 a.m. to perform satanic rituals and other weird stuff. Some people had reported seeing smoke rising from deep within the cemetery at midnight. It took a lot of persuading, but Sean managed to get me to want to check this place out as well. I always wanted to visit that place after hearing so many creepy stories, but frankly, I was too scared to even attempt it. I previously never had any paranormal experiences in my life and always wanted to see something crazy. We woke up the next day at 4 a.m. and left at 4:30 before anyone figured out what we were up to. Ironically, it was a very cloudy, foggy kind of day. I guess conveniently adding to the mood. Sean pulled up his Honda to the side of the road. I told him to pull up more so it was not as obvious. This was a low traffic road, so it would look kind of suspicious. He pulled up a few hundred feet from down the road, and we got out and cut through the woods so that any potential passing traffic wouldn't see us entering the huge cemetery. The forest was full of fog. It looked like a scene from a horror movie. I started having second thoughts, but we had already made it this far. Hopping the fence in the woods was easy. It was maybe a 3 or 4 foot fence. Sean kind of took the lead on this. Since it was mainly his venture, we finally reached the cemetery. The place was looking as creepy as ever because of the fog. We couldn't see that far away. He led me through the eerie plot of land, and we looked at the archaic tombstones. They all seemed to be from the 19th century. The writing on some of them was illegible at that point. I know it sounds super cliche, but I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched and being watched constantly. I started looking around the surrounding woods. I kept getting scared by the trees. They looked like people in the fog. My mind was playing tricks on me. I was prepared to be scared. I told Sean how creepy this was. I know, he replied, still with the feeling of being watched. We kept walking deeper into the cemetery. We hadn't seen anything weird. My fear started to go away. Maybe this was just another quiet, depressing place, I thought. We walked further, and we could see an outline of a huge abandoned building. We had reached the center of the cemetery. As soon as I realized this, I started getting a bad feeling. My chest felt heavy. Fear filled my body for no apparent reason, but we kept moving. Sean wanted to look inside the building and then leave, so he promised. The closer we got to the building, the more sick I felt. I almost felt like passing out. I told him to go alone and make it quick. I sat next to a grave to catch my breath, and he continued forward, leaving me alone. It'd been a few minutes since he went inside. I was starting to feel better and thought about following him inside. I hadn't even fully gotten up when I saw a person walking just 6 graves away. I froze for a moment and I quickly hid, excuse me guys, I quickly hid behind a tombstone. I slowly peeked at him. It was definitely not Sean. He was a lot taller, wearing a hooded black cloak. He looked like he was in his 50s or so. He walked towards the grave and stomped on it. Just a few feet away from where I was, he turned back and looked towards me. He started speaking. It wasn't English, it was another language, a very weird language. Like he was speaking in English but backwards. It sounded extremely creepy. Who was this guy? Maybe one of the people who was involved in one of the alleged rituals? What he did certainly scared the fuck out of me. He pulled a shovel out of nowhere and started digging into the grave while shouting in this weird language. I got scared and stopped peeking out. I didn't know if this person would harm us or even if he knew we were there. Maybe he was armed. I don't know. I got scared now for Sean. He did not know there was some sort of lunatic outside. I wanted to leave that damn place like a flash, but I couldn't leave. I did not want to leave Sean alone. I stared desperately at the rotting building while the crazy screams got louder and louder, weirder and weirder. Like something was trying, like he was trying to summons something or cast some sort of spell. Just gibberish. I thought maybe this person was mentally ill. Then I saw Sean sneak out of the building. He had heard the screams himself. He gestured me to come towards him. We carefully met midway, hiding through the graves, and then, without saying a word to each other, ran. We ran like fiends. The screams slowly faded into the fog. We didn't say anything until we hopped the fence and got back into the car. Sean looked more scared than me. He basically put it in the car in drive before the car had even had a chance to fully start. After a few seconds, he was finally able to tell me what he had seen. When Sean was inside that abandoned building, he found a sigil of baffle net painted on the wood floor, which basically was a sign of Satan. Around it were a bunch of freaky dolls with buttons for eyes. Okay, you guys know me about freaky dolls. I hate dolls. This is creepy. He saw rooms full of weird, freakish dolls. Again, the dolls, you guys. Jeez. And other satanic symbols, which were practically everywhere. He didn't get a chance to see anything else in the building because of the screams that he was hearing. We told this story to everyone and got scolded by our parents. Many people thought we were lying after a group of adults hearing our story. They all went to investigate the building and found it completely empty. They just found some leftover pieces of dolls, and I was shocked. Sean was never the same after he left the cemetery. He no longer acted goofy and fearless. He was more serious and very quiet now. I think Sean saw something in there, something more than just dolls and satanic symbols. I think he still hasn't told me. Rob, thank you for this. Obviously, this was back when I was younger. And thank you for the appreciation for the Halloween stories and what you do. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. That's an awesome Halloween story. Dolls, as you guys all know, scare the absolute crap out of me. For those of you that know me and follow the channel, dolls and clowns, dolls and clowns. Here's another email from another person that sent it in over the weekend to help out with these Halloween stories. Halloween Series 5 for you guys. Emailed into me. It's about this person's child's ghost. It goes on. About 6 years ago, I moved into a home which had just been purchased by my parents. So this is a younger person, I'm assuming, everybody. Got a home purchased by his folks. I had been in that place for a couple of months and everything was fine. One night I put my 2-year-old daughter to bed. Oh, Rob, by the way, yes, the parents bought this for me and my husband with my pregnant child. The one I'm talking about is my 2-year-old, by the way. I wanted to clear that up. And he did. I kind of did some foreshadowing, so thanks. I went upstairs to check on my child, my infant, my 2-year-old, as I said. Sorry for the beginning ambiguity. But yeah, she was sound asleep. I felt a breeze run past me. I felt like someone had walked past me, and there was a very strong smell of lavender. All upstairs, looking over my 2-year-old. I went downstairs, putting it all to my imagination. About 5 minutes later, I heard my daughter start talking. So I went upstairs and turned on the bedroom light. I asked my daughter who she was talking to, and she pointed to something across the room, and she said she was talking to the lady. This happened on several occasions and sometimes in the middle of the night. I would hear my daughter talking and laughing with someone. Some mornings I would go into her bedroom and she would have glitter on her face. Around this time, a friend of mine came to visit on an afternoon. When she left, she put some cigarettes on the coffee table, as I had run out of them. I walked her to her car and went back inside. I remember noticing the cigarettes on the table, and I went upstairs to the toilet. On my return, the cigarettes were nowhere to be seen. There was no one else in the house at that time. My partner was still at work, and my daughter was at my parents' house. I looked under the coffee table and saw that the rug underneath had been rolled up into a tube. I unraveled it to find the cigarettes inside. Obviously, my bad habits were not appreciated. Another time, myself, my partner, or husband, had just gotten out of bed. Our daughter was asleep and our cat was curled up at the end of the bed. Suddenly, I heard the phone start to beep as though it had been left off the hook. My husband and I went downstairs to find that this is what had happened, but none of us had used the phone that night. Also, it was one of those phones that was attached to the wall slot. You know, I know we all use cell phones, but this happened to be one of the dial-ups, an older one from my grandmother. I know, though, that I did not knock it off of the hook. It had to have been picked up and lifted. You know, the heavy phones back in the day. If I stood up at the top of my stairs, I would always get a feeling of someone rushing up the stairs past me and out of the corner of my eye. I would see a figure, but it looked directly at it. It was never there. This went on for the first year that we lived in this home. Things calmed down for a while, but nothing really happened. Then we encountered a run of bad luck. I went on to have 7 miscarriages, including losing a baby when I was 5 months pregnant, and I also lost my grandmother, whom I was very close to. Finally, the year I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl after having an extremely difficult and worrying pregnancy. I spent the last 2 months of my pregnancy in bed, unable to walk. I remember one particularly hot summer's day. I was in bed, my husband at work, and my daughter at school. I burst into tears as I was so fed up. I have to point out that we had swapped bedrooms with my daughter. Anyway, I noticed in the corner of the room some lights had started to appear. For the first time in 5 years, I smelt the lavender, that scent, and I began to hear a female's voice. Although I didn't hear the voice physically, it was definitely in my head. It was a voice of a lady reassuring me that everything was fine and it would all soon be over. At that time, I was 35 weeks pregnant. The next week, I gave birth to my daughter. She was 4 weeks premature, but as strong as an ox. A couple of weeks later, I woke up one night, and again, in the corner of the room, the lights appeared. I then noticed a very tall figure bending over my baby daughter's crib. I had the feeling that the figure was smiling at her and meant her no harm. I also had the feeling that whoever this person was, they were very pleased that we finally had a healthy baby. We had moved out of there months ago after and bought a new home. But we go back to the old home regularly, as my parents still own it and rent it out whenever it's abandoned. We go in and help with redecorating for future residents or tenants. On a recent visit, my husband went up to the loft to clear out all of our Christmas decorations that we had stored up there, old toys, baby clothes, etc. When he was up there, he found some old paintings which neither of us remember being up there before. He brought them down, and upon closer inspection, they had been painted by a girl called Laura. Unfortunately, there was no date on them, but it is a mystery as how they got there. Like I said before, we go back quite often, and I always feel welcome. One night, as I sat in the car as we're leaving, I looked up at the old block, and I swear I saw a figure standing out the window of our whole old home, always watching us while we leave. And I feel that the ghost of my daughter is a protector. Thank you. I must say, you guys, these are two pretty cool stories. Excellent emails that I got in. And I hope you enjoyed those for Halloween. I know I did. Subscribe to Bigfoot Mission Rob if you're new. I will see you. What is today? Wednesday. I'll see you Thursday afternoon with Tex Live. BMR's out. Have a great day.